Hey, how's it going? I like coffee, so that's what we're talking about today, is coffee. I got my unicycle, took my jacket off because it is hot out here, and I've already been riding for a few too many minutes. So just gonna ride back to the car here and chat with you about coffee. Gonna hop up, see if I can get this on camera. Oh, that was a fail. Okay, straighten out the seat. Okay, we are rolling. So, as promised, conversation about coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. I've drank coffee since I was in, I think, late elementary school, not routinely. I started drinking coffee routinely in high school, which I don't think is necessarily good for me, but I don't know. There's studies about that, about the impact of coffee and caffeine on the human body. I listened to this podcast called Stuff You Should Know. They just did a throwback episode to a episode they covered, I think, in 2017 about caffeine and coffee. So it's fresh on my mind, but that's what we're talking about today. And I want to talk about my experience with coffee and caffeine. I also want to talk about some of the thoughts around it and some of the things that I've learned recently that I think you might find interesting. I'm saying a lot. I think it's because I a lot. It's because I'm biking and I'm breathing heavy. I'm gonna try to stop saying But if there's one noble person watching this video who wants to tally up all the times I say put that in the comments. That would be hilarious. Anyway, so we're going to talk about my experience with caffeine, some of the things that I've learned recently about it, and then we'll end just by talking about a couple of places that have some good coffee around here that I really enjoy.
Good job.
Thanks. So, little shot of the unicycle again. Actually, I'm going to save my thoughts till after we cross the bridge. This is pretty sweet. Here. All right, let's see if I can get a good shot of this. That thing is rickety. Whew. I almost lost my balance at the end there. A bug almost flew in my mouth. So, coffee. My experience with coffee, like I said earlier, started drinking coffee late elementary school, middle school, and then on kind of a routine basis, I was drinking it almost every single day when I was in high school. I'd pour myself a coffee before I got on the bus. And my parents, they volunteered at my church growing up at the coffee bar, which was a staple of most evangelical churches starting in the 2000s. So they had an espresso bar. They were learning all the espresso-ese, how to make a good latte and espresso cappuccino, all that stuff. And they brought that home with them. They decided to buy a latte machine. And that was about late middle school, I think, which, you know, coincides with when I started drinking a ton of coffee because lattes are delicious. So I probably had too much caffeine, more than I needed growing up. I was already kind of an energetic, spazzy kid. My favorite actor has always been Jim Carrey, and that was very apparent when I was growing up because I would act like Jim Carrey, and that would drive a lot of people crazy. And I was also just kind of had a hard time sitting still. So the caffeine, it kind of helped, but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it would help wake me up, sometimes it would make me more spazzy.
Well, let me past you. Because I think you want me to say, wow, you're really impressive.
Hey, thanks.
Why else would you be doing it?
Good point.
You're on the green belt.
I hope you can hear this guy. He said, good job. So that was nice. Whew. Okay, so where else was I going with that? Oh, just a little bit of my background with caffeine. I think, oh, whoa. Oh, almost lost it as I'm going over a river, which is kind of crazy. Let's cover this. Woo. It's kind of a cool shot, huh? Okay. And now we're going downhill. So, so growing up, I hadn't really thought much about my coffee consumption. I wasn't a big soda drinker, or still not big into soda. So I didn't drink Pepsi or Mountain Dew or energy drinks really, but coffee has always been my main squeeze. So getting that bean juice and, well, okay, so it goes into current day where I drink coffee at least 1 cup a day, probably a couple of cups each day. And I realized something, and now we're going into the second part of this video, which is about me and my things that I've learned about caffeine and coffee. So caffeine and coffee, obviously they have an effect. They're a stimulant, they're an actual drug. They do a whole lot of crazy things. One of the things I learned just a couple of years ago about caffeine is how it works, where there's a part of caffeine where it tricks your brain. It takes the receptors in the brain that usually receive the chemicals or hormones or whatnot that tell you that you're tired. And it blocks those, and so you're not getting the tired things that your brain's making. So that's step part one, is your brain just isn't being told that it's tired physically and that you need to rest, which is kind of not great, especially if you do it every single day of your life. Since you're a middle schooler, you probably don't develop the best sleep habits. Other thing about caffeine I learned was the stimulating effect, which we all know about, but it's kind of that 1-2 punch. So it's clogging up the parts of the brain that should be telling you you're tired, and then it's having an effect on the body where blood vessels tighten, where it's a higher heart rate, right? It's activating a little bit of that fight or flight mentality. And this is why I wanted to talk about caffeine and coffee today. Was it, for some people, just gives them lots of energy and helps them do things that they can't usually do. On your left. But for other people, and maybe it's a mix, right? I mean, like I'm a mix. Half of the time, caffeine helps me sleep. Part of the time, it helps give me energy. Part of the time, it makes me super duper anxious. And something that I've been learning when it comes to public speaking and just kind of performing at a job in general is that the brain does not usually understand the difference between fear and excitement. So both of those are your body getting more energized, and your heart rate's elevated and stuff, but your body has not yet decided whether to fight or flight. And so a lot of people, one of the tips they give when you're public speaking is they say, well, your body feels anxious, just tell yourself, because the lizard brain doesn't know what's going on, so all it knows is fight or flight has been activated. Tell it that you're excited, not that you're nervous, and then you'll turn that nervous energy into excited energy, and you'll just be an unstoppable locomotive of social energy on stage. Well, that doesn't totally happen, as I think many of us who've been in that situation know. And the opposite can happen. You actually just get more nervous, or maybe nothing happens. But I bring up that point to say your body has a hard time distinguishing between whether it is freaking out and it needs to go hide or fight, or whether it's just delighted and it's Christmas morning. And so when I have coffee, sometimes I'm hoping it just helps my body wake up, helps me be energized, helps me feel like Christmas morning, but instead it triggers some anxiety. And my wife is experiencing this as well. So about a year ago, we slowed our caffeine intake from 3 cups a day down to 2 to 1, and then eventually 0. And what happened was we really missed coffee. So we went back to drinking coffee, and it started with 1 cup a day, then went to 2 cups a day, and now we're back up to about 3 cups a day. So I guess the moral of the story is caffeine's addicting. I don't know, but it's something that I think people don't think enough about, the negative side effects of caffeine, which is that elevated heart rate. And if you're already in a situation that might kind of stress you out, caffeine consumption, coffee, can amplify that. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, man, I'm like, got a lot going on at work. I've got a lot of caffeine in my system all the time. I just kind of feel anxious perpetually throughout the 5-day work week. And they said, oh, that's not good at all. And not just in a like, that probably isn't fun kind of way. It was in a, hey, in a few years, medically, that will have consequences if you don't make a change. And so I kind of want to share that as well, just to say, if you are the kind of person who's drinking caffeine routinely and you're noticing that you are a more anxious person, I think a lot of us have been drinking caffeine for a long, long time. So it might be hard to identify and diagnose that caffeine is the reason that you're feeling the way you're feeling. So I would encourage anybody who feels anxious on a semi-chronic basis, semi-routine basis in a semi-chronic way, to test weaning yourself off caffeine and see if that impacts your anxiousness. Okay, at the last part of the video here, I'm about to get back to the parking lot, so I'll just chat about a couple of coffees that I like. My favorite way to make coffee right now is with the Nespresso, the little pods. We had one of the big pod machines, and it was just kind of inconsistent. I know those are really, really popular right now, but we just changed over to the little pods for Nespresso. Love that. If I'm feeling a little bit more artisan, I'll use the French press. But for a smoother coffee, it's kind of like a Saturday morning, Sunday morning treat, I will do a pour over. Those tend to take closer to 5 or 6 minutes. Plus you have to boil the water and all that. So it takes a little bit more, but I like it. So anyway, that is coffee. All the stuff I have to say about coffee. All right, see you on the next one.